Welcome to Ball and Chain Podcast. This is episode 191 for April 13th, 2016. I'm Mox Born again. I have with me, it's my angel. How's it going?
It's going.
Gone. So, yeah, we have a extremely short show for you guys this week. Talk about some of our favorite TV shows that our series that have come to an end, and some are just starting. And then we got a review on Quantum Break. So it's gonna be a short show, but that's okay. It's gonna be fun. You want to just jump right into Once Upon a Time?
Sure. This episode focused mostly on, a couple different things. Mostly on Belle and Rumple, with some backstory on Gaston, which was interesting. He definitely didn't seem to be the Gaston that we know from the Disney movie at first glance. He seemed to be really a pretty nice guy. I was kind of winning Belle over until an incident came to pass where they found an ogre that Belle was not ready to torture. Basically, she didn't want to turn it into her father or torture him. She just wanted to let him go. But first she was going to find this artifact that allowed them to, it was a mirror. And when you saw the person in the mirror, if they had good intentions, they looked regular. But if they were like bad or evil, they would have like red glowing eyes. So they get there, come to find out, basically long story short, that Gaston had tortured the ogre, released him, and made it look like the ogre had attacked him. Belle's mirror does get broken, but in the process it does see Gaston, which shows his eyes to be glowing.
Dun, 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 dun.
Come to the end of that all to realize that she still goes through with her engagement to Gaston, basically because his family's got a big army that can help her family defeat the ogre war. Meanwhile, in present time, Hades, who has a contract basically to gain her baby, her child,
I want your baby
that she's pregnant with, comes to her and makes a deal and says, let Gaston and Rumple fight it out. If one of them throws the other into the River of Souls, you get to keep your baby. Well, she couldn't let that happen. She stepped in and in the process accidentally pushed Gaston into the river, thereby nullifying the that contract. So
right.
Hades, so Gaston got pushed in the river. Hades still has possession of the baby. Meanwhile, we see Emma and Hook and
Snow
try to erase their names off of the gravestones, which was a premonition that Emma had. And some kind of storm shows up. We see, similar to like the tornado that we see Zelena arrive in, or maybe like Dorothy, or something along those lines. This tornado is from Wizard of Oz. Creature shows up. They find out that it's Red, actually, in werewolf form.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. I must have dozed off or something like that, or I wasn't paying attention. So
yeah, she's unconscious.
in the premonition, there was an animal that ran Snow down.
Snow, right?
Was that Red as a wolf?
Right.
Oh, now that makes a little bit more sense. I'm like, they didn't really pay off the whole wolf thing or animal thing. They just kind of avoided it.
That was her premonition. So they went into hiding or whatever because she was scared. She didn't want that
Gotcha.
to happen. So she went into hiding in Regina's crypt. They decide that, they can't be afraid of things. They have to go out and face them. So they go out, find the animal, and it was a werewolf who was in fact, I don't know if it's a werewolf, but Red.
Gotcha.
Red Riding Hood.
Makes sense.
So next, it'll be interesting to see why she's in the underworld. Is she alive like most of our characters, or is she dead? So we haven't seen Red for a while. She's kind of not been on the show for, I think, a couple of seasons.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, we did see her team up with Mulan at one point.
Right.
And it looks like she, Mulan, and Dorothy are together in Oz from this next week's preview. So that'll be interesting to see why they're together, what they're doing there, and what led for her to be in the underworld.
Yep. Awesome. So we had our season 2 premiere of Fear the Walking Dead in lieu of regular Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still liked the show. I think we got a lot of character development and character understanding. I really like Strand, the guy that owns the boat. I think he's awesome.
Which everyone kind of thinks he's a bad guy.
I don't think he is. I think he's just smart. He's just out to survive, and he doesn't know anything other than how to survive in this,
Right.
in
I
like a
definitely
chaos.
think he has his own agenda.
Oh yeah.
And I think he will use people to get what he needs.
See,
But again, I don't know that necessarily makes him a bad person.
right. I think the interesting thing, and they talked about on Talking Dead afterwards, is when Strand was when they got out to the boat the first time, and Strand sent Nick back to get the others. He could have just left. Like,
Yeah.
hey, thanks for getting me to my getaway. I'm leaving now.
Yeah,
So-
and I can understand him being a little angry. These people that are on his boat are kind of making decisions that are against what he wants and that could put them in jeopardy.
Right, and the biggest one is the chick with the radio, and
Yeah,
she's
the young girl.
the young girl that's communicating with another quote unquote broken down ship or whatever. And at the end of the episode, we hear, "Oh, hey, you're not so broken down. I'm coming for you now." Like, oh shit,
Yeah, how did he put it? She's like, "Well, I'm sorry, we can't,
we can't come.
we can't come to
you.
get you." He's like, "That's okay, I got you. I'll see you soon," or something
Right.
along those lines.
Right, and that's just like, oh boy, here we go. I know they have a shotgun on board. I don't know what other types. I mean, they had weapons when they were in Strand's house.
Right.
So I'm assuming they took some weapons
would
with
hope
them.
so.
I mean, they took a corpse with them, so I would hope in the zombie apocalypse, when you're looking at a double barrel shotgun and someone with a bullet in their head, you're like, I'm gonna go with the chick that's dead. So hopefully they took some ammunition. I was, you saw Travis. Travis. Yeah, you saw Travis kind of giving a eulogy for his ex-wife, and there for a brief moment, their son. I thought their son was going to come around, and it was going to be this really nice bonding moment, but he had to turn into an emo dick, and now he's.
Yeah.
I don't like that kid. He's
been a little self-centered since the beginning, but
I think he needs to be. If they go through this whole getting captured thing or bringing on another boat or whatever, and I think that this kid needs to get the shit kicked out of him, and he needs to. I don't want him to die, because I think it's a good storyline between him, his stepsister and stepbrother, and his stepmother. I don't know if they're married or not. I feel like it's a really good drama story right there. So I don't want him to die, but he just needs to get this shit kicked out of him like once or twice.
yeah, I mean, you gotta figure it has only been a day or two. I mean, there's a lot of fresh emotion going on there.
Yeah, that's
and
true. I guess if my
they
mom
haven't-
did die, I probably would be pretty pissed off too. But I mean, then again, like,
And he's a kid. I mean, he's still a teenager with teenage hormones and all that crap too. It's not like, Carl killed his own mom, but they've been in this zombie apocalypse world for a little while. He's seen other people die. He understands
Yeah,
what it means to
that's
become
true.
a walker.
That's true.
This is still pretty fresh and new to most of our characters. They
Yeah.
haven't had to endure losses and stuff along the way and see what really comes of these people.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, that's a good point, because we're so used to, and that's kind of a detriment to the current Walking Dead, or current Fear the Walking Dead, is we've watched this series or watched this story or series or whatever for so long. We're like, oh yeah, you should have, if you can shoot as few bullets as you can, and you've got some type of melee weapon, preferably a blade, like go for the head.
Right.
Like,
We have knowledge
Right,
that
we-
these characters don't.
right, we saw people on the beach, like someone pick up a rock and like bludgeon a zombie to death. Like, oh well, that was like a terrible weapon. Like,
Yeah.
Like you were just in a house that had like, knives and
Right.
anything you pick up a rock off the beach.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the show too, is seeing things unfold
Right.
in the first part of the zombie apocalypse.
I'm
And
kind of sad that they're not going to stay on the water. The way they made it sound in Talking Dead is they're going to get back to land this
looks like
next
fairly
episode.
soon, yeah.
This next
The
episode.
preview showed them like walking up on shore.
Right. I really wanted them because that's kind of like what the whole like last part of the first season was like. Oh, we got to get to the boat. I've got a boat. Blah blah blah. Boat.
Well, they
Like,
made it sound like it was going to be a whole season on this boat, and it's going to be
right.
close knit quarters and a
They're
lot
really
of.
going to see them interact with each other. No, not so much.
And maybe they go back to. I mean, I don't know what happens. Maybe they do have to stop off for something, and then
Someone's
they get
gotta
back.
pee.
Yeah. But anyway,
I don't know. Talking Dead had a really interesting backstory, or not backstory, I guess, documentary on how they filmed the yacht scenes and
I
stuff like
fell
that.
asleep. I didn't get to see all that.
So basically, they built this yacht from nothing. Like I think they said they built like 3/4 of it or something like that, and it's on the set, an infinity pool that they used for the Titanic.
Oh, okay.
So like it's this huge pool where they've got like all these floating like bridge things that they can piece together or whatever and kind of move the equipment around as they see fit. But it's an infinity pool, so it's its own pool, but it lines up with the horizon so well that you can't see the edge of it. It just looks like it goes on and on. But it's really cool. I'm like, man, you would go through like all this, build this freaking boat, and
To only use it for
and
two
only use it for
episodes.
2 episodes. Like, come on.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, but that's what Walking Dead does. I mean, the Hilltop Retreat, that big, huge mansion,
Yeah.
is totally from scratch too. They just build these
I hope
massive,
they
realistic
don't.
sets.
I know, and I hope they don't go away from that. Like, it's very like
Unique,
immersive. Yeah, it's very
yeah.
unique. It's very immersive, and it's just like that cannot be cheap. Like,
No.
and like you're just, and I'm just thinking like materials. Like, you got to have people actually build that shit, and that's you talk about like redoing our driveway, and they're gonna charge us $8,000 for it. Like,
You're using solid concrete for that. A lot of this stuff is made out of,
I know wood, but
Mm.
still, I mean, right. But anyway, I'm sure they got a huge ass budget, but I don't know.
Yeah, viewership levels are super high. I'm sure they're making lots of money.
Right. So anyway,
When you
I'm
talk about-
excited. What?
And I mean, you talk about another show that we watch that's coming up soon, Game of Thrones.
Oh my God, yeah.
Their budget. I mean, I was reading something the other day. I think the season 6 was filmed in something like maybe 5 or 6 different countries.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Just to get what, different climates, different temperatures.
I guess so. I
different-
mean, I think part of it was in Canada.
terrain.
They have Belfast. I can't even think of. I think there was some in Spain. I mean, they were all over the world filming, and that can't be cheap, flying people in and out of all those different countries to film this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. With that, flying like I don't think you're really flying cast members. You're flying more like crew and stuff like that, or maybe.
You're
I don't
probably
know.
doing some cast members though.
You think so?
I mean, the majority, like Sansa, she's been in this cold climate for a long time, so she's probably in Canada, wherever the
Right.
heck she is. Maybe Belfast. I think the Night's Watch people were there. That's where Jon Snow's been. But at any rate, yeah, you don't see a whole lot of travel between them. Obviously, I don't think most of them live in those countries.
Right.
And then you got to figure board and however they put these people up and what they do. I don't know. It's because Walking Dead cast, most of them have bought apartments in
Yeah.
like Atlanta area and the Georgia area. So I don't know. It's just interesting,
Yeah.
like the production some of these
It's neat.
television shows are doing.
I know,
They're not
it's-
movies; they're TV shows, and it's like almost filming a movie every episode.
I like it. I would rather them do that than spend money on CG, just because it's you get more. You can tell when an actor is Well, if it's a good actor, you can't. But we're not. You're not dealing with like AAA actors in most of these series. I mean,
Right.
there's a couple big names, but CG is CG. But I think if you're on location and it just does that much more. Like
And that's something that actors on Walking Dead have said too, is that they can't help but act in a certain way because they feel like they're really in those situations when they're
Right.
in these sets that are so realistic.
Well, and that's kind of the other thing that they were talking about in Talking Dead this past weekend was how they were doing the dinghy scene where they were trying to get the or the Zodiac, whatever I call it, a dinghy. It's Zodiac. The little ship that takes them from the shoreline to the boat. And they were talking about how it's really cold. I think they were filming in Mexico. I think it was
No, I thought they were filming like Pacific Northwest, like Oregon, like Northwest California or something, the Pacific Ocean.
I thought they said they were in Mexico for this scene.
No, maybe I was.
I
wrong.
don't know.
I didn't see the.
But they said it's really cold and the water's freezing cold and they had to wear sweats, the wetsuits or whatever. And it's funny because like that climate that they're in is completely different than the ones in Georgia where it's like super hot and sticky, the humidity is super high, and they got to worry about mosquitoes and snakes and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's interesting to see what they go through. Like we kind of take for granted that these people are acting. And it's like, oh yeah, that would be easy. Like, oh, I can act. Like I can read a few lines or memorize lines, and I could jump out of a car or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But like doing that for
Yeah, Rick's like, I was running in that 90-degree weather with all this stuff on my back and
right
running for 15 hours in this heat.
right. And it's like, and then they're like, oh, you got to do it again. Damn it, come on.
Yeah.
Like, haven't you got enough video of me running?
Right.
So I don't know. It's just interesting kind of things you don't think about, and it's I'm glad we have a Talking Dead at the end and for like this type of show. I really wish. I know AMC won't do it, but bring someone on to do like a talking show after the show airs, because it's not AMC, it's HBO.
Game of Thrones.
Or
There's supposed to be there's going to be an after show.
Really?
Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
I
outstanding.
did hear about it, and I forgot to tell you about that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I read. I don't know if it's just for, and I forget who's going to be on it, but I did read something about it.
Come on, Chris. Come
no,
on.
that's
Damn.
not him. HBO.
But I don't know. I think it's just like a podcast afterwards, and they have they've got good interviews, there's good conversation, they audience participation, all that stuff. It's just a lot of fun. It's very kind of like laid back, and it's
and especially after you have a big character death, like it is almost like as Chris Hardwick puts it, it's a therapy session.
right.
Yes, After the Thrones will air on HBO Go and HBO Now Mondays after new episodes.
Oh, so it's not even the same day. HBO Now and HBO Go, so it's on the apps. It's not even televised.
I don't know. The after show will only be available for now. The after show will only be available on HBO Now, HBO Go, and HBO On Demand.
Yeah, so
but it could be added into the HBO lineup at a later date.
Yeah, so they're probably just testing the waters.
Mm-hmm.
So and they do that with these. I mean, you saw that like with Better Call Saul. They just did one for the season finale. They only did one for Fear the Walking Dead, the first season. So, and now we're back with one after every episode.
Right. Bill Simmons, I think, is who's producing it. Be hosted by Andy Greenwald and Chris Ryan of The Ringer.
I'm not familiar with who those people are.
I don't either, but that's who's
probably should be, but that's okay. All right. So let's see here. I didn't get a chance to watch Better Call Saul, Anthem, or Anthem, Archer or Gotham. There we go. Holy shit. We've got them DVR'd, so we'll talk about those. We'll catch up on those next week. Couple of things I wanted to jump in here before our review on Quantum Break. Titanfall 2 released a teaser trailer this past week. Looks really sweet. It's just a CG
I never
trailer.
played the first one.
And it's got like this escape pod like in the middle of the forest, and like all you hear a titan obviously walking, but like the end of it has this, its foot stomped down, and he throws down this sword into the ground. Like, oh yes, now we got swords to play with. Everybody's got to have swords, right? Destiny, Halo, everybody's got to have swords. So Doom, the new Doom game released today. I tried to rent it, but they didn't have it out yet. So instead, we rented Dark Souls 3. So next week we'll have a review of Dark Souls 3.
You will probably have a review.
I don't. I'm gonna.
probably
I'm gonna play it upstairs so you can actually watch it. I don't think you'll be.
I don't think I'll really be all that interested.
I don't
in
know
it.
if you'll be interested in this one. It's an art. It's
I
kind
was
of like.
definitely more interested in Quantum Break, but I never got to see any of it. So
I recorded some of it, so if you want to watch it, it's up on the Twitch channel for like the next week. So, I can get it upload. I could try to get it uploaded to YouTube. For some reason, our Twitch YouTube's connection is terrible, and it doesn't want to upload the files. But yeah, so you can watch it. You can. It's kind of like an RPG. Like you build your character, but I don't. It's really dark, like really dark and
Yeah.
hard. It's
Yeah,
from. So I don't know.
remember.
Anyway, all right. So let's roll into Quantum Break. So Quantum Break released last week. We talked about it a little bit last week, but really, I finished the game last night. I played it on hard, and I mean overall, I was pretty impressed. So kind of like the background on the game is you play as Jack Joyce. And you're actually the protagonist at the very beginning. You play as him in the beginning of the game, and you're interacting with the bad guy, the antagonist, which is Paul Serene. Basically, what he's doing is Paul has picked up some of your brother's, I guess, what would you call it? Like he's developing this time travel machine, and like he's built this time travel machine, and Paul's kind of like taking it to the next level, and doing all this research behind your brother's back and blah blah blah. And he's like, hey, I'm going to demonstrate it for you. And so like they're in this in this workshop or whatever, and you set the time. He's like, okay, I'm going to set it so I go 5 seconds in the future or whatever. And the way it works is it's like this giant donut. And the door, you set the time when you want to go forward or backwards. And if you want to go forwards, you walk clockwise. If you want to go backwards in time, you walk counterclockwise around this cylinder. It's the size of like a house. So you're walking, around for, a couple minutes. So he comes out and there's two of them. And he's like, oh, this is so cool. And they're finishing each other's sentences. And I'm like, why isn't the universe exploding? How is there two of these? Futurama
Right.
style. Like, come on. And so then they're like, okay, the fun's over. Let's, go back, get put back the way it was. So he walks back into the machine. And then everything kind of goes to shit from there. Like, Will shows up, your brother, and the door closes on Paul and then the whole thing explodes, and you and Paul are kind of right next to each other, and this is kind of what like tears the rifts in the world, and like you've got all these different like things going on, and time and space is freezing in some places in the world, and it's just like it's basically the world is going to end unless unless you fix it. So like this whole series I guess it is a series, is you basically trying to track down Paul and get revenge for a death. I think we spoiled it last week. A death in the game, which turns out, I won't spoil it anymore, wasn't actually a spoiler because you actually go back and something happens.
So that's a big spoiler right there.
What? It wasn't a spoiler because it goes back and things a whole bunch
Well,
of a whole
what
bunch
you
of
just
stuff.
said is a big spoiler.
Whole bunch of
so-
stuff changes, or could possibly change. I don't know. But it's interesting because some of the stuff that didn't quite make sense in chapter 1 was like for instance, you're like you come up in where Will has a backup, and I don't know how this works. I don't know how you get away with building a time machine, but how you get away with building a second time machine in another location that's the size of a house. Like if you think about how much energy it uses, like you would think that would raise a few questions. But anyway, you're outside this building and your one buddy's taxi cab is parked out front. You're like, how did that get there? And he doesn't know, you don't know. Like, what the fuck? Turns out that in chapter 5, when you go back in time, you are driving that car to this location, but before you get there present time. So there's a lot of like crossing and this I don't know. It's interesting. So I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like that's convenient. So I wrote it off as like bad writing or whatever, but it's actually very smart writing. Anyway, so the game kind of starts off with that like the accident or whatever, and you get all your powers up front, and that's kind of the one thing that I was scared about was, you get all these powers up front, and it's going to get boring towards the middle and end of the game. Which we can kind of jump into gameplay. So it's got some pacing issues, like for sure. Like and I kind of like it's really strange. Like there's like 3 different sections, right? In one of these chapters. So there's a section. Let's see, I wrote it down. There's a story section where you can walk around and you pick up things and you can read like emails and look at artwork and like basically dive more into the story. And you can't, you don't get any guns, you don't get to use any of your special abilities or anything like that. It's very like, hey, you're in this section of the game, you can't do any of the fun shit or anything like that. You're here to learn. And then there's boss fights and like big room fights where you're like, oh, I'm shooting down 5 or 6 guys at a time, and there's just big kill rooms, right? And then there's like kind of like the debrief room where after a big fight, you go back into this like no abilities, no weapons, and you're learning about who you just shot up and how they're not going home to their kids and where you're going to go and shoot the next place up and stuff like that. So it's very like cookie cutter, like this is where you do this is where you fight bad guys, and this is where you learn about where you're going to fight bad guys next. And that's kind of where the biggest problem I have with the game is like when you're in the learning stage, like when you're in the like stage of like, hey, let's talk about the story and what's going on. The NPCs that you're running around with are like egging you on, like, hey, come on, let's go. I gotta show you this thing. And you're like, hold on a second. There's like 15 things over here to read, and I want to read every word. Like, back the fuck up. So like the game wants you to go forward because it's telling you, giving these audio cues. And I'm just like, really? Like I want to immerse myself in this game, but okay, here I come. So I feel like it's got some pacing issues. A lot of the like reading and all that stuff would be better served as spoken, because essentially the whole game takes place as a memory. You're being interviewed by somebody at the corporation, and essentially like, so everything is like so this is what I did next and this is where we went next. Like all the cutscenes are like kind of explained that way. So anyway, it would be nice to have like those audio sections, like instead of having to read through an entire email, have the email up where you could read through it, but like just have them say, oh yeah, while I was searching for thing X or where to go next, I came across Dr. So-and-so's, open email, and I was able to blah, 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 and kind of give us a synopsis of the email. Not trying to be lazy, but I'm just like saying, like, if you want the game to keep moving, like the developers wanted you to, like, let's kind of do that. The gunplay is really good. Takes a little getting used to. I had to like drop the sensitivity all the way down because it was like, whoa. The second thing that I was probably most disappointed about is the use of the abilities. Like my understanding with this game when they pitched it was you're going to be, there's going to be gunplay, and then there's going to be puzzles where you have to use your time, your time abilities and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that sounds really sweet. Kind of like on a Portal type of level, maybe not quite Portal, like this is puzzle 1, this is puzzle 1, 2, or puzzle 1, 3, you know what I mean? But The first 3 chapters are terrible with these type of puzzles. Like one of the puzzles is you have to shoot down one of the crane hooks that's holding up like a bunch of bricks or whatever, and then you have to climb up it, and then basically you have to rewind time so that the bricks and all that stuff go back up, and then that creates a bridge that you can walk across, and that's it. Like, that's the puzzle. Woo! But in chapters 4 and 5, they are so much better. Like, if the puzzles were that awesome, like in the first section of the game, I would have no problems with it. Like, like one of my favorite puzzles was this. It's just kind of like almost like an obstacle course, but the obstacle course was a giant like 15 car pile up on this bridge with a giant tanker boat crashing through the bridge. So like time like stops as the bridge is collapsing, cars are exploding, metal signs are flying around. So you have like this really awesome like visual feeling of like, holy shit! Like, thank God time just froze. Otherwise, I'd be at the bottom of the ocean with all this crap coming down on top of me. And like, all of a sudden, like a rift starts to happen where like things are starting to move like in motion or starting to rewind on their own. So you've got like all this stuff like moving super fast, and you have to like slow things down. You have to sprint through certain sections of it. It's really intense. So like just having that, I wish there was more of that. I don't know. I'm not a game designer, so I don't know how you create that type of intensity, 24/7 in a game. But that part was a lot of fun. So yeah, so that was, I mean, the last 2 chapters of the game is really where it's at. That's where it really shines. Graphics, I know I said at the very beginning, or last episode, I felt like they were kind of lackluster. They kind of felt a little grainy. But you kind of get used to it. And it's, I don't know, it's fun. It really is fun. Like, just like the boat crashing is very cinematic. Like, and it's kind of a cheesy word to say, but it's very cinematic. Like, you've got, you're climbing on top of this bridge, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, there's a boat. Oh, and then it's like skipping in time, and all of a sudden you see it just crash right below you, and it's just like the spectacle of being inside this giant mass destruction is just like, oh, this is so cool. But so what else? Story's good. Gameplay, I felt gameplay was probably the most disappointing part. Graphics look really good. Overall, I think it's a good game. I wouldn't buy it because it's so short. It's only 5 chapters long. The chapters are about an hour long each. It took me about an hour each on hard. So I wouldn't buy it. I'd rent it. There's some replay value in there because you're making choices that impact the actual story and like the live action cutscenes. So there's some things there. What else is going on? But yeah, so I think what I would like to see next, as far as if they were to do a sequel, because they kind of left the story open ended, is I would really like this as like an episodic content, like release chapter 1, and then midweek release the live action video, and then next week you get chapter 2, and I feel like that would be a really sweet 30 minutes or whatever. So I don't know, that's kind of what I would like to see. More time travel puzzles. That's my biggest thing. And then the other change I probably would make would, it almost felt like this game wanted to be kind of like Assassin's Creed, to where you can climb all over the place, but you really couldn't climb on shit unless they draped something with a yellow cloth and kind of flagged it as, hey, you need to climb on this to go that way. Like, you couldn't climb on anything. You couldn't, you were dropping from 15 or 10 or 15 feet and dying, but yet your dude could take a bullet to the face. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. So that's kind of the things I would change. I would give it maybe a little bit more like a CSI kind of detective type of feel or whatever. So I don't know. I'm just I was impressed. It was a good first game. I think that if they make a second one, there's some some opportunities. So cool. You'd like it. No, not so much.
Okay.
All right. All right, guys. Well, that's episode 191. We'll be back next week with a review on Dark Souls 3. We'll get caught up on our shows. We'll talk a little bit more about shows. Yeah. All sorts of good stuff. Try and get Angel to play some games. No games.
We'll see.
We'll see. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, if you want to check us out on our YouTube page is youtube.com/72DPI online. You can see all of our old past podcasts as well as the other shows that our clan offers. You can watch us live every Wednesday at twitch.tv/BC podcast at roughly 8 p.m. So we were a little late today. Dinner went a little long. You can subscribe to our Twitter feed at BC BC Podcast. And yeah, we will be back next week. Thanks for watching.
See ya.